Welcome, fellow seekers of history's shadows. Before we journey into the peculiar punishments of Viking assemblies, I'd love to know where in the world you're listening from tonight. Whether you're settling in for sleep in Manchester, beginning your evening wind down in Melbourne, or finding a quiet moment, somewhere between, I'm grateful you've joined me here. If these explorations into history's more unsettling truths resonate with you, please subscribe so you never miss our descent into the past's darkest corners. Now, settle back and let your mind drift with me to a time when faith and fear walked hand in hand, when the promise of salvation came, shadowed by the threat of damnation. The pale dawn mist hangs low over the broad expanse of Þingvellir, where jagged lava rocks give way to emerald grass dotted with dew. Villagers arrive in small clusters, fishermen with salt-silver beards, farmers in patched wool cloaks, shield maidens with braided hair tucked beneath simple linen hoods. The air is crisp, each breath like a soft bell toll in the hush before assembly. At the heart of the plain, a ring of standing stones marks where disputes will be aired and judgments rendered. As the sun's first rays paint the horizon in gentle apricot, a weathered chieftain steps onto a raised stone platform. His fur-trimmed cloak brushes the ground and his braided hair, threaded with bits of bone, gleams with frost. He lifts a heavy arm, voice booming over the assembled crowd. A single word. "Hearth!" calling all to order. As villagers tighten their cloaks against the dawn chill and the rhythmic drip of melting mist from their hoods. Today's thing will decide whether a wandering thrall owes his life or must pay wergil to an offended kinsman. Yet before any sentencing, the law speaker, a stooped elder clutching a weathered scroll, will recite each ancient statute, reminding all that community hinges on these very words. In this moment, the plain itself seems to lean in, listening. A hawk circles overhead. Distant waterfalls murmur like spirits convening. Here, on this neutral ground, the pillars of Viking society stand revealed: honor, reparation, and the prickly balance between mercy and severity. Each soul present bears witness, knowing that the judgments passed beneath these skies will echo long after footsteps fade and mist returns to stone. Before any judgment can be laid down at the thing, the timeless words of the law speaker must ring out over the plain. This venerable figure, chosen for his prodigious memory rather than sheer strength, serves as the living archive of Iceland's unwritten legal code. On this crisp morning, the law speaker is a stooped elder whose skin bears the weathered patina of countless winters. In one hand he clutches a scroll of parchment, newly inscribed reminders of amendments, and in the other, a carved staff etched with runes passed down through generations. As the mist swirls at his feet, he lifts his voice in a measured chant. Each syllable unfolds in a deliberate cadence, the archaic Old Norse laws rolling off his tongue like a slow river. He recounts the rules governing land inheritance, the fines for minor thefts, and the grave statutes that prescribe outlawry. Farmers tighten their scarves. Traders shift nervously, recalling debts they still owe. Children press close to mothers' sides, wide-eyed at the gravity of every word. The very air seems to pause, reverent of these ancient declarations. Between recitations, the law speaker pauses to trace the runic carvings on his staff, as though drawing strength from the sacred symbols. His eyes, pale and focused, scan the assembly, ensuring that every ear is attuned, every heart understanding that law is the spine of society. Without these spoken statutes, disputes would unravel into violence, neighbors would wreak revenge unchecked, the thing would crumble into chaos. When he finishes, the staff taps the stone dais 3 times, signaling the community that these laws have been rightly declared. A hush follows, broken only by the distant rattle of a hawk's wings and the soft murmur of gossip already stirring among the crowd. With the code freshly invoked, the assembly stands ready to render judgment, bound by the authority of the spoken word. Beneath a sky smeared with pale rose light, the assembly at Þingvellir turns its collective gaze to a smooth, rune-carved stone set in the grass. This is the oath stone, the sacred centerpiece of the Thing, where pledges of loyalty and truth are bound in unbreakable ritual. A hush falls as a young warrior steps forward. Asgeir, his braided hair damp with morning dew and his leather tunic still stiff from last night's frost. His heart hammers in his chest, for today he swears fealty not only to his clan, but to the very fabric of Viking society. Asgeir lays his callous palm upon the stone's etched surface. The runes, worn soft by centuries of fingers, seem to glow under his touch. He's steadying himself against the weight of expectation. With a steady voice he speaks the oath, to uphold justice, to avenge wrongs when law permits, and to honor kinsman and guest alike. His words echo across the plain, each syllable carrying on the cool breeze, stirring the grass at the edges of the assembly. As he speaks, the law speaker's staff taps 3 times, a ritual signal confirming that the vow has been witnessed and recorded in spoken law. Farmers and traders, shield maidens and thralls all bear witness, cupping their ears or bowing their heads, silently affirming that the oath stone's power is not merely superstition, but the cornerstone of order. Should Asgeir's promise falter, should he break his vow, the wrath of community judgment will descend upon him as surely as steel on flesh. When the final word leaves his lips, Asgeir lifts his hand from the stone. A shaft of sunlight breaks through lingering mist, illuminating his determined face. The crowd, sharply, as one, a soft ripple of relief and respect. In this single act, an oath carved into memory rather than parchment, the bonds of Viking society are renewed, each promise a link in the chain that holds order together on these wild northern plains. When a neighbour's ox wanders onto another's field, or a merchant is caught shortchanging a customer, the Thing's first recourse is not bloodshed, but the ancient practice of public rebuke. Here, on the grassy slopes of Þingvellir, an offender is brought forward upon a low wooden stump, its rough-hewn surface creaking under shifting weight. A hush falls as the crowd leans in, curious to witness communal justice in its gentlest form. Jorund, a middle-aged farmer with a perpetually furrowed brow, stands, shackled at the wrists by braided hemp ropes. His wool tunic is patched in places, and his sandy hair, streaked with dust, hangs limp around his face. He shifts uneasily, cheeks heating under the gaze of friends and neighbours. Before him, the law speaker recites the offence, solemnly. Jorund of Hrafn's Valley did lead his oxen across Thorgrim's barley without leave, trampling tender shoots. At each recital of the offence, the law speaker lightly taps a carved rune on his staff, marking the count of breaches. Villagers murmur among themselves, some sympathetic, recalling the hardships of a lean spring. Others sternly nod, mindful that even small transgressions must be checked. The chieftain strides forward, voice calm yet unwavering, and declares the sanction. A public apology, a fine of 2 silver pennies, and the bearer of a small wooden plaque inscribed with his misdeed. Another villager affixes the modest plaque around Jorund's neck. The little board rattles gently as he moves. Trampler of barley, and the sound carries through the assembly like a whispered rebuke. Embarrassment flushes his face, but he bows his head, lifts his chin, and murmurs the prescribed apology, muttering, "I repent and offer silver in recompense." The crowd watches, some shaking heads, others offering faint nods of approval at his contrition. In this measured ceremony, the Thing ensures that order is upheld without resorting to violence. Public shaming binds the community by reminding all that honor matters. Even an inadvertent trespass carries consequence. As Jorund steps down, plaque jingling, the assembly exhales, ready to move to heavier matters, mindful that even the mildest rebuke serves the cause of social harmony. When a betrayal cuts deeper than a blade, stealing a neighbour's treasured heirloom or spreading lies that fracture kinship, the Thing may turn to a ceremony both solemn and peculiar. The bestowal of skull beads. These small ornaments, carved from animal bone and stained dark by boiling tannins, symbolize the weight of guilt and the path to contrition. Today the offender is Signe, a young weaver accused of pilfering threads meant for the chieftain's funeral shroud. Signe stands before the assembly, her flaxen hair loose around her shoulders, face pale beneath the morning light. Her woolen dress, once neatly woven, appears dishevelled, a testament to sleepless nights spent worrying what awaited her at the Thing. As the law speaker intones the offence, fingers tapping runes upon his staff, villagers murmur at the audacity of the theft. Yet, rather than chains or exile, the community opts for a ritual that binds shame and redemption together. An elder woman, Glufrún, keeper of rites, emerges from the crowd, carrying a wooden bowl filled with bone-white beads, threaded on coarse leather twine. Each bead is inked with a rune, denoting a facet of remorse, honesty, reparation, humility. Glufrún moves with deliberate grace, kneeling before Signe. With calm precision, she places the first bead at the center of Signe's throat, then winds the strand around her neck so that the small skulls rest heavy against her skin. As each bead clicks into place, Signe's shoulders bow with the weight of her misdeeds. The clatter of bone against bone echoes in the hush, like an unspoken confession. The crowd watches, some with solemn empathy, others with stern eyes, reminding her that trust once broken demands humble recompense. When the final bead is set, Glufrún ties the cord firmly, then steps back. Signe raises, trembling, hands to the beads, closes her eyes, and speaks a vow. To restore the stolen threads, to toil in silence for a fortnight at the communal weaving hearth, and to speak no ill of clan or kin for a year. The skull beads remain, an ever-present reminder, until her penance is fulfilled. In this ritual of bone and contrition, the Thing transforms shame into the promise of renewal, binding offender and community in a shared journey back to honor. When greed or treachery breaches the bonds of kin, the Thing may employ a punishment both symbolic and painful, the splitting of the nose. This ritual marks the offender forever, a visible testament to broken trust. On a brisk morning, the accused stands before the assembly, a trader named Thorvald, whose chartered ship was caught smuggling illicit furs. His well-worn cloak does little to hide his trembling frame beneath. A hush descends as the law speaker recounts Thorvald's transgression. Thorvald of Skalholt did deceive his patrons, selling stolen pelts at double price. At each word, he taps the runic staff, the wooden echo punctuating the gravity of the accusation. Thorvald's dark eyes dart among the crowd, seeking mercy in stern faces, but finding only the resolve of justice. The executioner steps forward, face obscured by a leather hood stained with charcoal. He holds a small, razor-sharp blade beneath his arm, its edge glinting like a frozen stream. The chieftain pronounces the sentence. Solemnly, "Let his nose be split from bridge to tip, that all may see his dishonor." Thorvald swallows hard and nods, understanding that defiance here would bring a far worse fate. With measured calm, the executioner presses Thorvald's head back against a wooden block. A collective intake of breath ripples through the assembly. The blade descends in a swift scarlet arc. Thorvald, a single cry that seems swallowed by the vast plain. Crimson flows, staining the wood. The crowd bows its head, some shielding their eyes, others meeting each other's gaze in solemn recognition that law must be enforced. As the executioner binds the wound, Thorvald's face bears the permanent mark of shame. Yet, even here, mercy follows severity. A healer is summoned to tend the cut, ensuring it closes cleanly. Thorvald leaves the Thing with a bandaged face and a vow etched in blood to restore stolen goods and live as an example of law's power. In this scarred visage, his community sees both the consequence of deceit and the path to redemption under Viking order. For many disputes, be they accidental injury or broken promise, the Thing relies on compensation rather than corporal punishment. Known as wergild, this system assigns a value to injury or death, payable in silver, livestock, or goods. On a windswept plain, a dispute between two clans over a slain cow has brought both parties before the law. The slain animal's owner, a stern matron named Brynhild, stands beside her claim, a ledger of tally marks on a bone tablet. The law speaker steps forward, voice steady. Bjorn of Hrafn's Reach slew Brynhild's cow during the feast at midwinter. Let the Wergild be set. The crowd listens as he invokes the scale of compensation. 3 head of cattle or their silver equivalent. Bjorn, clad in patched tunic and fur-lined boots, bows his head, muscles tense with regret. A scribe kneels on the grass, counting silver pennies on a flat leather hide. Each coin glimmers like a raindrop in the grey light. Brynhild's kinsmen lean in, ensuring the count is complete. The chieftain nods, approving the tally. 24 silver pennies payable by the next moonrise. Bjorn's jaw tightens. He relinquishes a small pouch of coins, each one exchanged with solemn dignity rather than mockery. Once paid, the ledger is marked with additional runes signifying satisfaction of the debt. Brynhild picks up the bone tablet, its tally now balanced, and she peers at Bjorn, her eyes softened by the recognition that recompense restores harmony. By mid-morning, both clans gather at the mead hall to share a horn of ale, sealing the agreement with toasts rather than vengeance. Through Wergild, the Thing channels potential blood feud into commerce and contract. The community witnesses that loss can be made right, bonds mended through agreed-upon value. In this ritual of payment, order is upheld, and the cycle of violence is broken by the glint of silver under Nordic skies. For the gravest crimes, murder, treason, or the violation of sacred guest right, the Thing reserves the stark sentence of death by hanging. Yet Viking justice transforms even this grim fate into communal warning by selecting a towering oak at the Thing's edge. Its gnarled branches forever dubbed the gallows tree. On this fateful day, an outlaw accused of killing a visiting skald stands blindfolded before the ancient trunk, a noose of braided hemp dangling like a silent verdict. Witnesses gather at the outskirts, forming a wide circle under the tree's sprawling canopy. The law speaker recounts the offence, how the skald, en route to recite heroic lays, was felled by axe for reasons still murky. The chieftain, garbed in sable cloak, pronounces the sentence. By the laws spoken here, let the outlaw hang until his spirit departs these bones. The executioner, gauntleted and resolute, tightens the noose around the condemned's neck. The crowd pulses with tension. Some avert their gaze from the rope's swaying shadow. Others stare into the outcast's downturned chin. A hush blankets the plain as the executioner places a sturdy stepladder, nods once, then steps aside. A single clap on the tree's thick trunk signals the moment. The blindfold is lifted. The condemned tugs at his bonds, face pale in dread. With swift precision, the executioner shoves the ladder away. The hemp cord jerks taut, the body drops, and the assembly swallows a collective breath. The tree's branches sway, carrying the weight of the sentence and warning all who witness that murder cannot stand in Viking lands. After the body hangs for 3 tides, it is cut down and returned to the earth, its burial rites performed by the clan of the victim. In this solemn spectacle, the gallows tree stands as a stark emblem, a place where law is absolute, community protection paramount, and the cost of violence writ large against sky and wood. When proof eludes oral testimony, and no witnesses can confirm guilt or innocence, the Thing sometimes resorts to the sacred practice of trial by ordeal. One such ordeal involves a cauldron of boiling water, believed to reveal divine judgment. If the accused emerges unscathed, the gods declare them innocent. On a misty morning, a woman named Idis stands before a black iron cauldron bubbling atop smouldering embers. She is accused of poisoning her brother's ale, an accusation whispered fiercely but without concrete proof. The law speaker recites the accusation thrice, tapping his staff on the stone dais. Idis's flax-blonde hair is bound in tight braids, and her simple linen dress slips slightly as she trembles. Villagers press back, their breath visible in the cold air, uncertain whether to mourn her potential guilt or pray for her vindication. An elder priest steps forward, raising a silver-tipped staff to bless the water. He murmurs an incantation to Freya, beseeching her to guide the trial. Steam rises in spirals as the cool dawn transforms to a damp haze. Idis is directed to plunge her right hand into the cauldron for 3 heartbeats. Ripple when she dips her arm. Water hisses and spits around her wrist. She withdraws her hand. Onlookers peer at the red-streaked flesh. A healer kneels to inspect. The burn is superficial, no bone nor tendon seared. The priest nods solemnly. Freya has spoken, and Idis is declared innocent. A cheer erupts, tempered by relief and awe at divine intervention. Idis collapses to her knees in gratitude, tears mingling with soot. Through this chilling trial, the Thing invokes the sacred to adjudicate where human law falters. The ordeal by water becomes both a testament to faith and a dramatic reaffirmation that the gods themselves stand as ultimate arbiters in the pursuit of justice. On certain occasions, the Thing calls upon another dire ordeal, the trial by hot iron. Here, the accused carries a red-hot iron rod a set distance. If their wounds heal cleanly within 3 days, they stand absolved. This morning's ordeal centers on Halfried, a barn builder accused of burning a rival's granary in a midnight quarrel. His broad shoulders are slumped in resignation as he approaches the fiery forge. The blacksmith, face smeared with soot and sweat, holds an iron bar glowing like a sliver of dawn. Sparks drift upward as the bar cools slightly, but the heat remains searing. Halfried's tunic is rolled to his shoulder, revealing forearm cords taut with muscle. He grips the bar's end, tension visible in his knuckles. The law speaker intones the charge. Let Halfried walk 3 paces, bearing this iron in hand, to prove the truth. At the final pace, Halfried halts. A hush cloaks the Thing as he extends his arm. The blacksmith presses the iron rod firmly onto Halfried's bicep for a count of 5 heartbeats. A hiss and crackle fill the air as flesh meets metal, and Halfried exhales sharply, a measured breath, lips pressed firm against pain. The forge's flames cast long shadows on the gathering. Villagers stare at the impressed red mark on Halfried's arm, envisioning the tendon-searing heat. The blacksmith lifts the rod away. It clatters on the anvil, cooling. Halfried wraps the wound in linen bandages brought by a healer. Over the next 3 days, he must return to the Thing so the law speaker can inspect the burn. In this ritual of fire and flesh, the Thing entrusts judgment to both community and perceived divine will. Should Halfried's wound fester, he will face conviction and harsher penalty. But if it heals cleanly, he will walk free, his survival a testament to his innocence, and the gods' mercy amid Viking law. When a spouse is accused of petty theft or a scullery maid of spilling precious mead, the Thing may resort to a watery spectacle, the ducking stool variant. Though more common in later lands, the Vikings had their own version, perched atop a stout beam. A wooden plank swings the accused into the river's cold embrace. On this misty, mid-morning, Steiner, a kitchen servant, faces her trial for soiling the chieftain's ceremonial cloak with spilled porridge. She is led, bound at the wrists, to a stout A-frame beside the riverbank. Villagers ring the beam in silence, breaths pluming in the chill air. The law speaker recites the charge, solemnly. Steiner of Hlod's Hall did stain the cloak of the chieftain, defiling its honour. At each clause he taps his runic staff on the beam, his voice echoing like a chant. Steiner's flaxen hair hangs wet and unkempt. Her simple linen dress clings to her limbs, and her pale face is set in quiet dread. The executioner, a broad-shouldered youth with solemn eyes, places her upon the plank, tethers her ankles and steps back. The beam creaks as it tilts, sending her into the dark current with a sudden, splashing splash. A sharp gasp rises from the crowd as she struggles, arms thrashing for a moment, before the rope is slackened and she is hauled out. Water pours from her tunic in rivulets, frosting at the hem. Once ashore, A healer kneels to wrap her shivering frame in woolen cloaks. Steiner's lips chattered as she swore to mend her error, to scrub the cloak with linden oil, to work twice in the kitchen, and to speak only words of respect when near the chieftain. The crowd watches in stony silence, that transforms to murmured approval as she stands drenched but unbroken. In this wet trial, the thing mixes humiliation with mercy. No scar remains, yet the memory of the cold water lingers, a lesson in respect and communal cohesion beneath the Viking scar. For those who spread malicious gossip or claim false honor, the thing may invoke an auditory admonition, the shaming collar adorned with jangling bells. This contraption ensures the community never forgets the offender's offense. On a crisp afternoon, Olaf the bark peeler stands shackled before the assembly, an iron collar locked about his neck and small bronze bells clinking with every tremor. Olaf's cordbark tunic is stained by sap and sweat. His hair is cropped close, and his once bright eyes now flicker with shame. The law speaker recounts Olaf's crime. Olaf of Haug mistakenly accused Einar's wife of infidelity, sowing discord. With each word, the bells tinkle, a mournful counterpoint to the solemn chant. Women clutch children at the edges, while men stare with furrowed brows. The chieftain steps forward, voice neither cruel nor kind. Let Olaf bear the bells for 7 days and nights. No hearth may shelter him until the final bell tolls. A smith fastens the collar, its weight pressing cold metal against Olaf's throat. He bows his head as the lock clicks shut. As he moves away, each step rings out like distant thunder, an audible confession across the plain. He must journey to each homestead, offering apology and accept water and bread only when invited. Each resident greets him warily, bells chattering like remorseful birds. By the week's end, Olaf's shoulders straighten. His voice, once harsh with accusation, now carries quiet humility. When the 7th dawn breaks, the chieftain summons him back to Þingvellir. The collar is unlocked, and the bells fall silent. Olaf kneels, his voice soft. I have learned that words wound deeper than any blade. The assembly nods, acknowledging that public contrition, like the jingling collar, can restore bonds stronger than before. When a man's crimes defy compensation, murder, betrayal, or grave sacrilege, the thing may utter the cruelest decree, outlawry. To be outlawed is to be cast beyond the protection of law, forever exiled. In the grey dawn, Gunnar the blacksmith stands at the edge of the designated boundary, a row of carved wooden stakes marking his limit. His broad shoulders slump beneath a patched tunic, and his hands, once skilled at forging steel, shake with fear. The law speaker's gravelly chant fills the air. Solemnly, Gunnar of Riversbend did betray his guest, spilling blood in dishonour. Each tap of the runic staff on the central stone echoes across the valley. The chieftain solemnly declares, Gunnar is henceforth outlawed, no kin shall aid him, no sword defend him, no hearth feed him. Gunnar's eyes flick from stake to stake, 10 in all, each inscribed with runes branding him rejected. He steps beyond the first, then the next, until the last stake drops behind him like a falling gate. The crowd watches in solemn silence, some with tears, others with determined faces indifferent to pity. Banished, Gunnar carries only his leather satchel and a heavy heart. He must journey into the unknown, mountain passes, dense forests, lands where wolves roam. No village will grant him shelter. No man may trade with him, for to do so would break the oath of the thing. As he walks into the grey woods, the morning mist swallowing his form, the assembled turn away. Outlawry severs a man from community, leaving him to survive on cunning and courage. Yet in this harsh sentence lies the thing's final assertion. Law and order stand at the community's edge, ready to protect its bonds by casting aside any who would shatter them. Whispers of the blood eagle, a gruesome execution allegedly tearing open the victim's ribs like wings, linger on the edges of thing lore. While many scholars doubt its true use, the mere rumour held deadly sway as a tool of terror. On a wind-blown plain, a hushed crowd gathers to witness the fate of Hrolf. Accused of murdering his lord under cloak of night, his chains clank as he stands before a towering yew, its gnarled branches like reptilian limbs. The law speaker raises his staff.
Clare's throw. Hrolf of Skogar felled his liege. Let his fate be known. The chieftain's voice, cold as sharpened steel, declares, gravelly voice, by this thing's will, let Hrolf taste the blood eagle, unless he confesses. A collective intake of breath ripples as Hrolf's face drains of colour. Yet before the ritual could commence, Hrolf falls to trembling knees and, sobbing, weeps, his voice raw. I stabbed only in self-defense. I beg mercy. The horror of the blood eagle, real or imagined, presses upon him like a living spectre. His captors pause, unsure whether legend or law will claim him. The chieftain exchanges a glance with the law speaker. The crowd leans forward, tension taut as a drawn bow. In that charged moment, mercy softens severity. Brolf's confession and plea avert the blood eagle. Instead, he is sentenced to 10 winters' hard labor, clearing forests for the community's fields, a living penance, far harsher than any whispered legend. As Hrolf is led away, villagers murmur relief that the blood eagle remains a thing of rumors, its terror enough to compel honesty. The execution is not carried out, but its shadow reinforces the power of the thing. The threat of an unimaginable fate can bind even the most desperate to truth and order.
In moments when deception or cowardice brings shame without bloodshed, the thing may employ the raven's scorn. The offender is draped in dark feathers, forced to parade before the assembly in symbolic disgrace. On a damp morning, Torvi the watchkeeper, accused of sounding false alarms that sent warriors skittish at midnight, stands cloaked in raven plumage. Her leather jerkin lies hidden beneath the mass of black feathers, each knot tied by an elder woman whose family fell prey to her missteps. Torvi's shoulders stoop beneath the plumage's weight. Pale strands of hair peek through the barbs, and her face is pinched with remorse. The law speaker's voice carries over the plain. Loudly, Torvi of Stonewatch cried wolf thrice, sending good men from rest for naught. A hush follows each feather rattle as the crowd leans in. The chieftain's decree is measured. Gravely, let Torvi bear the raven's plumage until sunrise 3 nights hence, and at each dawn she shall recant her error before these stones. With that, the elder loosens the final knot. Torvi steps forward, each movement sending a whisper of feathers brushing feathers, an eerie, bird-like susurration. Throughout the first night, villagers hear her footsteps echoing on wooden walkways, the faint rustle of her feathered cloak, a reminder that vigilance demands truth. At each dawn, she stands before the thing, strips one feather and speaks firmly. I admit my fault and vow to sound the horn only at true peril. Her voice grows steadier with each recital. By the third sunrise, only a few ragged feathers remain on her shoulders. The chieftain gestures her forward. She casts away the last plume. The assembly releases a muted sigh, Torvi's penance complete. In shedding the feathers, she sheds shame and reclaims trust. The raven's scorn lingers in memory, a feathered lesson in honesty under Viking skies. In the chill light of dawn, the thing convenes to address the most brazen of thefts. When iron tools vanish from the smithy or prized honey stores are pilfered. For such betrayals of trust, Viking justice may resort to a punishment both painful and visible, branding with boiling tar. Today, Gunnar the woodcutter stands before the assembly, arms bound at his back, his breath misting as he awaits sentence. A stout iron cauldron simmers over hot coals, dark tar sloshing within like liquid night. The law speaker steps forward, voice solemn. Gunnar of Skogholt did steal the honey of Helga the healer, betraying kinship's bond. At each clause he taps his staff on the stone dais. Gunnar's coarse wool tunic hangs loose, but his broad shoulders tighten under the weight of shame. An elder smith, her hands thick from years at the forge, lifts a ladle of tar, its surface shimmering. With deliberate calm, she pours the molten pitch into a shallow iron pan. A hush ripples through the crowd as the smell of burning pine wafts upward. Gunnar must press his bare forearm against the pan's rim. Tradition holds that the branding rune will sear itself onto flesh, a mark that cannot be hidden. As he leans forward, Gunnar's muscles quiver. The elder presses the pan against his skin in one swift motion. A hiss and a plume of steam mark the instant his flesh meets tar. Gunnar's jaw clenches, a low groan escaping as the heat scorches. Villagers avert their eyes. Only a few watch the brand form, a simple rune denoting thief. Once the pan is lifted, a healer applies cold water and saline dressings to the wound. Gunnar stands unbowed, the rune glowing red on his arm. The chieftain pronounces his penance. Restore triple the value of stolen honey and serve under Helga's protection for a season. In this ceremony of fire and tar, the community witnesses that deceit leaves a permanent scar. Yet even here mercy follows, guiding the offender back toward honor. When the death of livestock or injury to a kin is beyond petty fines, the Thing invokes a wergild paid in animals, a living testament to restitution. On this misty morning, a dispute over a trampled flock brings two farmers before the assembly. Sigrid's prize ewes were crushed by Harald's unrestrained herd, leaving her with empty pens and broken trust. The law speaker steps to the dais, voice resonant. Harald of Hafensdale did drive his sheep into Sigrid's fold, killing 5 ewes. At each word he taps his staff on a polished stone. Harald, clad in a heavy cloak, shifts uneasily. His braided beard is flecked with frost. Sigrid, wearing a dyed wool dress, grips a bone-carved tally stick. A line of Harald's flock is herded forward, 6 sturdy sheep, led by a herdsman in weathered boots, each animal in the cold air. The chieftain pronounces, firmly, "Let Harald deliver 6 head of sheep to Sigrid's care, 1 more for goodwill." As the first ewe is led forward, villagers murmur approval. Sigrid steps down from the dais to inspect each sheep, her pale hands brushing wool. She nods in satisfaction as the tally reaches 6. The bone-carved stick is marked with an extra notch, sealing the agreement. Harald bows his head and speaks a brief apology. Solemnly, "May these sheep restore what was lost and bind us anew in neighbourly peace." By midday, the flock is driven across the plain to Sigrid's homestead. There, children run alongside the sheep, their laughter weaving back the frayed bonds between families. In this exchange of living wergild, the Thing transforms loss into renewal. Animal by animal, trust is rebuilt beneath the grey Viking sky. When words alone cannot settle a charge of poisoning or deceit, some assemblies turn to nature's own ordeal, the thistle seed test. Believed to provoke truth through physical reaction, the test demands the accused ingest tiny, spiky seeds and endure divine judgment. Today, Kjartan, suspected of slipping mandrake into his brother's mead, stands trembling before the Thing. The law speaker's chant rings out. Kjartan of Cyborg is accused of poisoning his kin's cup. Villagers lean forward, watching the flax-blonde youth fidget. An elder woman, her fingers nimble, opens a small leather pouch, revealing thistle seeds as pale as bone. Each seed bristles with microscopic prickles. Kjartan kneels, hands clasped in his lap. The elder places 3 seeds on his tongue. Fair-haired and freckled, he swallows with a shudder. A hush falls as seconds stretch. His throat itches, his eyes water. He coughs once, then twice, no sign of grievous distress. After a full minute, the law speaker nods. The gods show no wrath. Kjartan stands innocent. A cheer ripples through the crowd, tempered by relief. Kjartan collapses forward, tears mingling with sweat. A healer brings a cup of warm broth, easing the seed's sting. Through this prickly trial, the Thing enlists nature as witness. Its sharp seeds a humble oracle of innocence or guilt. In Kjartan's relief, we see both the power of communal faith and the enduring belief that even the smallest seed can unleash divine justice. In matters of suspected witchcraft or moral corruption, The thing may turn to purification by salt and smoke, a ritual invoking divine cleansing. On a damp morning shrouded in mist, Helga the healer faces whispers that she cursed her rival's crops with blighted grain. Her calm presence contrasts with anxious onlookers bundled in woolen cloaks. The law speaker intones, Helga of Ravenholt is suspected of dark enchantment upon her neighbour's fields. A hush follows. Helga's deep-set grey eyes flick to the cauldron of steaming salt water beside a smoking brazier. An elder priest steps forth, clutching a censer filled with aromatic herbs, juniper, birch bark, and sea salt. He swings the censer in wide arcs, pale smoke curling like spirits around Helga's form. She stands barefoot on a rune-inscribed circle carved into the grass. Next, Helga dips her hands into the boiling salt water. Steam rises in a billow as her skin reddens. The healer's apprentice douses burlap strips in the brine and waves them through smoke, then binds them around Helga's wrists and ankles. A low chant, part prayer, part incantation, fills the air. Villagers watch breathlessly as the smoke swirls and the salt hisses. When the ritual ends, Helga breathes deeply, her eyes serene. The priest decrees, by salt and smoke your innocence is affirmed. Return to your duties and tend your herbs in peace. A collective exhale ripples through the crowd. In this fusion of elemental trial and sacred rite, the thing calls upon purification to dispel suspicion. As mist dissipates around Helga's form, the community witnesses that even fear of hidden darkness can be soothed by communal faith in cleansing traditions. And rival clans dispute seaborne raids or contested fishing rights. The thing may call forth the oarsman's oath, a maritime ritual binding rowers to truth on open water. On a wind-tossed morning, 14 oarsmen gather aboard a longship anchored at Þingveller's braided river mouth. The river's dark ribbon leads to open fjords and hidden coves. Eric, the eldest helmsman with salt-silver hair, steps forward. His sea-leather jerkin creaks as he raises a carved oar. The oath oar, inscribed with runes of fidelity. Each rower, clad in woolen cloaks and leather boots, joins in a low chant as the helmsman recites their pledge, to speak only truth in matters of plunder and passage, and to uphold the bonds of crew and clan. As the final word echoes, the rowers dip their oars in unison, slicing through glassy water. Each stroke rings like a living drumbeat beneath a steel sky. The helmsman nods and dips the oath oar into the river, scattering droplets that catch the muted light. The sacred gesture seals their vow. Word will reach the assembly. Any oarsman who breaks the oath will face trial by sea, forced to navigate treacherous currents alone until they find land, their vessel a testament to broken word. Such a fate is as fearsome as any branding or exile. By day's end, the longship returns to the riverbank. The helmsman raises the oath oar high. The crowd assembled on the plain, shield maidens, farmers and traders, bows in respect. In this ritual upon water, the thing extends its reach beyond stone and land, weaving social order through the rhythm of oars and the promise that on Viking seas, trust must stand as firm as keel and rudder when the truth lies hidden beneath layers of silence. The thing may subject the accused to the frozen lake ordeal, believed to summon divine judgment through the bite of icy water. On a dawn painted in silver, Þóra stands on the lip of a partially frozen lake, charged with murdering her husband's prize stallion in a fit of jealousy. She wears a simple wool shift, her dark hair bound tight against the cold. The law speaker intones the accusation. Þóra of Mossbridge slew the stallion of Olaf the farrier. Each rune-tapped syllable echoes across the glassy surface. Villagers cluster at the shore, breath misting as they watch. A priest sprinkles holy water over the ice, chanting a plea to Ulla, god of winter, to reveal truth. Þóra steps forward, boots crunching on frost, and plunges her right hand into the icy water up to her elbow. She holds it still for 3 heartbeats, face clenched against the sting. A hush falls so deep, the crackle of ice seems thunderous. When she withdraws her arm, red lines trace her skin, but no frostbite. The priest examines her hand and declares, "Ulla's favor shows innocence." A collective exhale ripples through the crowd. Þóra collapses to her knees, tears streaming as she repents for the shame brought upon her. The chieftain dismisses her without penalty, advising her to honor her husband's memory with service at the mead hall. Through this shivering trial, the thing entwines fear and faith, inviting gods to adjudicate when human proof falls short. As the lake's surface refreezes, so too does the community's peace, tempered by the echo of winter's embrace. Some disputes demand swift resolution, and the thing occasionally employs horseback judgment, tests of courage and equanimity atop a steed. On a windswept plain, Einar, accused of brandishing his blade at a rival during a harvest feast, awaits his trial. He mounts a spirited grey stallion, reins tight in one hand, sword hilt in the other. The law speaker recounts the offence. Solemnly, Einar of Stoneholt raised his blade in threat against Leif of Redbrook. Each rune tap resonates like a hoofbeat. The chieftain signals the beginning. Einar must ride his horse at a run across the field, unsheathing his sword at full gallop, then return unscathed. He must remain composed. Any sign of panic confirms guilt. At the signal horn's blast, the stallion bolts forward. Einar leans into the gallop, sword sliding free. The crowd cheers as he carves an arc in the air, then turns. Dust roils behind him as he springs back to the starting point, mount and rider triumphant. The chieftain nods. Firmly, "The gods witness your steadiness. You bear no guilt of intent to harm." Einar dismounts, wiping sweat from his brow. Leif steps forward and accepts his apology, sealing peace with a clasped handshake. In this charged ritual, the thing tests not only innocence, but the mettle of one's heart under pressure. As hoofprints fade in the dust, harmony rides alongside, affirmed by courage and community witness. Recognizing women's crucial role, the thing sometimes convenes a women's council to judge offences affecting household honour or marriage. In a circle of carved benches, shield maidens and elder matrons gather under arbour and torchlight to hear the case of Carrie, accused of betraying her sister's confidences to a rival clan. Flanked by elder women in embroidered wool, Carrie stands before the council. Her linen veil slips in the torch glow, cheeks flushed. The presiding elder recites the charges. Sternly, Carrie of Blackwater shared secrets that led to raid preparations. Each woman listens, faces stern yet empathetic. One by one, council members speak. Some cite the sanctity of sisterhood. Others emphasize the safety of kin. Carrie listens with bowed head, throat tightening. When it's her turn, she pleads remorse and offers to bear any befitting penance. After hushed deliberation, the presiding elder stands. Solemnly, she pronounces the verdict. Carrie will tread barefoot along the common road at sunrise, bearing a woven basket of bread for every household she harmed. As dawn breaks on the 3rd day, Carrie fulfills her task, her bare feet bleeding but her spirit humbled. Through this all-female verdict, the thing honours feminine insight and communal care, ensuring disputes of the hearth are judged with wisdom and mercy drawn from shared experience. At the thing's close each day, the chieftain may deliver the mead hall warning, an address reminding all of the stakes of order and the perils of transgression. Gathered by torchlight in the great hall, villagers settle on benches as the fire roars. The chieftain stands before a carved wooden hearth, features cast in flickering light. His voice, low and resonant, recounts recent offences, trumped-up slanders, cattle thefts, oath breaches, each story serving a lesson. He speaks of honor earned and trust broken, weaving cautionary tales into the smoky air. The assembled listen in rapt silence, ale horns paused mid-air. As he finishes, he raises a horn of mead high. Let this warning carry beyond these walls. May each man and woman remember that peace thrives where law is honored. A toast rings out. Horns clatter. The hall erupts in a unified cheer, sealing their fellowship for another season. This ritual sealing reaffirms communal bonds, turning the trials of the day into tales of vigilance and unity. In the glow of the hall, listeners depart strengthened in resolve to uphold Viking order. When insults escalate beyond harsh words into attacks on honor, the thing may sanction the carving of runic insults onto a standing stone, an enduring admonition etched for all to see. On a windswept knoll, a stout runestone stands ready. Today's offender, Bjorn the blacksmith's apprentice, is accused of mocking the chieftain's lineage in tavern jest. Bjorn's face is flushed as the law speaker recounts the offence. Bjorn of Ironford did taunt the chieftain's ancestry, dishonouring his name. The stone's blank surface looms behind him, grey against storm clouds. A carver kneels, chisel in hand. With deliberate strokes, he etches Bjorn's insult into the stone's side, a biting verse rendered in angular runes. Sparks of stone dust drift as each letter forms. Bjorn stands motionless, shoulders hunched under the weight of shame. Villagers watch, some nodding at the poetic justice of permanence. When the final rune is set, the chisel taps thrice on the stone. The chieftain pronounces, "May this stone remind all that words cut deeper than blades." Bjorn bows, voice hoarse. "I shall speak with care henceforth." As the wind whips across the knoll, the carved insult glints, ready to endure through seasons of frost and thaw. In this unyielding memorial, the thing transforms speech into stone, a testament that honor, once wounded, demands an everlasting reminder. When a crime offends spiritual as well as civic order, the thing may prescribe a pilgrim's penance, a solitary journey to a sacred shrine. On misty morning paths, Gudrun, convicted of desecrating a local burial mound, sets forth barefoot to the distant temple at Þingvellir's sister site. Her linen cloak is thin against the chill. A small wooden cross hangs at her neck. The law speaker's chant echoes. Gudrun of Elm Hollow did disturb the resting place of kin. A hush falls. Gudrun bows at the mound's edge, then turns toward the rising sun. Villagers line the road, offering bread and warm broth as she passes. For 3 days she walks, through peat bogs and birch groves, her soul's blistered body weary. Each night she kneels to pray at waymarked shrines, placing humble offerings of pine cones and water. The journey tests her endurance and faith alike. On the 3rd dawn she arrives. At the shrine's altar she kneels again, voice trembling as she prays for forgiveness. The chieftain of the sister thing receives her oath of humility and lifts the pilgrim's cross from her neck. He pronounces, "By your steadfast penance you return sacred favour." Gudrun rises, tears in her eyes, renewed in body and spirit. Her path homeward is greeted with blessings rather than scorn. In this pilgrimage, the thing transforms atonement into a journey of renewal, bridging earthly law and divine mercy beneath the same wide sky. To mend deep rifts between families, the thing sometimes ordains a banquet of forgiveness, a communal feast where offender and offended share bread and mead. On a golden afternoon, the long table stretches across the hall, laden with roasted fish, barley cakes and carved venison. The rifted families, those of Halvar and Svanhild, long estranged after a property dispute, take seats opposite each other. The chieftain steps forward, raising her horn. "Let this feast bind hearts torn by strife," As you break bread together, may old wounds heal. A hushed cheer rises. Halvar, clad in a patched green tunic, breaks a loaf and offers it to Svanhild, who accepts with a curt nod, her embroidered shawl catching the light. As platters pass, children dart between legs, laughter stitching the air. Halvar raises his horn to Svanhild. I regret the pain I caused. She holds his gaze, then clinks horns. I accept your apology. The hall echoes with clatter and cheer. By feast's end, both clans stand together to sing a peace lay, voices rising in harmony. The Thing's charge is fulfilled, where law alone could not heal. Shared generosity and ritual fellowship restore unity. As torches gutter low, the new bond carries them beyond the hall into seasons of accord. When the Thing seeks divine assurance beyond human word, it may invoke a sacrificial oath ritual, offering meat or livestock to the gods as a pledge of honesty. On a twilight plain, a carved stone altar awaits beneath a sky pale with stars. The accused Haldor stands bare-chested, accused of stealing a neighbour's prized bull. The law speaker intones, Haldor of Redvale is bound to swear truth by blood and flesh. A flicker of torchlight illuminates runes on the altar stone. Haldor grips a ceremonial knife, its blade catching the glow. A bull is led forward, its eyes calm. Haldor kneels, lays a hand on its flank, and slices the throat in one practiced motion. Blood wells into a shallow trough, steaming in the cool air. He lifts a spill of the crimson promise and lets it drip upon the altar's runes, voice steady as he swears. By Odin's sight, I speak true. I took no bull. The priest examines the runes stained red and nods. The gods have accepted your oath. A hushed murmur ripples through the crowd. The chieftain pronounces Haldor absolved and commands the meat be shared among all assembled. In this solemn covenant of flesh and faith, the Thing transcends human judgment, binding oaths with divine witness. As the feasting begins under starlight, the remembered sacrifice seals both innocence and communal trust. In some cases, the Thing employs the witness stone recall, whereby prior witnesses are summoned to reaffirm their testimony under oath. A large standing stone, weathered by centuries, marks the spot. Today, two brothers, Leif and Gudmund, accused each other of slanderous words that sparked near duel, must bring forth the original witnesses. The law speaker calls the witnesses, farmhands, traders, and a travelling skald. Each stepping to the stone, they lay hands on its moss-soft surface and speak under oath, recounting the precise phrases uttered that day. Their voices converge, some voices quaver, others ring with certainty. With every testimony, the law speaker taps the staff on the stone, sealing the spoken word into collective memory. The brothers stand in silence, absorbing each account. When all have spoken, the chieftain weighs the evidence. He pronounces, loudly, Leif's words were false insults. Gudmund spoke truth. Let Leif grant 5 nights free board to his brother's homestead. A murmur of assent flows through the crowd. Leif bows his head, accepting the judgment. By recalling the witnesses at the sacred stone, the Thing weaves memory into law, affirming that truth spoken before all must stand unchallenged. As the brothers clasp forearms in reconciliation, the stone bears silent witness to order restored. To settle accusations of cowardice or dereliction among the guard, the Thing may hold a night watch trial, testing the accused under the cover of darkness. On a moonlit eve, Gerd, a young watchkeeper, stands near the edge of the assembly fire pit, accused of abandoning her post during a winter raid alarm. The law speaker's voice carries through the hush, solemnly. Gerd of Silverford fled her watch, leaving the clan unguarded. Torches around the circle sputter in the breeze. Gerd's breath puffs like smoke. Her wool cloak is dusted with snow. As the crowd watches, she must don her full watch gear, helm, shield and lantern, and patrol the perimeter alone for one full watch. 3 hours. Each torch's glow reveals her path as she circles the hall, shadow meeting shadow. The crack of ice underfoot echoes in the silent night. At dawn's first light, Gerd returns to the fire pit, weary but unbroken. The chieftain inspects her lantern, still lit, and shield, unmarred, then declares, firmly, "Your watch was kept, you stand proven. Yet let this trial remind you that duty demands steadfastness." Gerd kneels, voice soft. "I shall not falter again." The crowd responds with a low chorus of approval, welcoming her back into the fold. Through this nocturnal ordeal, the Thing blends trial with training, ensuring that error is met with challenge, and that trust, once regained, is fortified by resolve tested in darkness. At the close of the day's hearings, the Thing often calls upon the power of the Skald's verse to condemn slander or lies. Today, Harold the Boastful stands accused of spreading false tales of valor to insult a comrade. As twilight seeps into the plain, a Skald named Inga stands before a small fire, harp in hand, ready to compose the song of shame. With measured chords, Inga begins, a slow, haunting melody that weaves the story of Harold's deceit. His fingers trace the harp strings, each note resonant with mockery and gentle humor. The assembled crowd gathers close, torchlight flickering on their faces, as the Skald's rich voice recounts Harold's tall tales, of dragon-slaying feats never performed, of princesses wooed in lands he never reached. Harold stands upon a low stump, shoulders slumped beneath his cloak, eyes cast downward. Each verse cuts deeper than steel, painting him in comic relief rather than hero's light. Villagers murmuring and exchange wry smiles as the Skald concludes with a final couplet. "He who boasts without cause shall bear laughter's cost, his pride laid bare for all to see." Silence follows. Harold raises his head, cheeks flushed with embarrassment. Inga strums a final chord and bows. Then the chieftain steps forward. "Let this song remind all that truth carries weight, and empty boasts shall meet only scorn." Harold bows deeply, voice soft. "I accept this lesson, and vow silence henceforth." Through this gentle ritual, the Thing transforms shame into story, binding offender and observer alike, in the shared pleasure of truth's victory. As the crowd disperses under the starlit sky, the melody lingers, a reminder that even words must be handled with care. When a warrior breaks faith by refusing to uphold an oath in battle, the Thing may inflict the broken blade sentence, shattering the offender's sword to symbolize lost honor. On a sunlit morning, Rolf the Oathbreaker stands before the assembly, his once trusted sword at his side. He had fled mid-skirmish, abandoning his comrades. The law speaker's voice rings clear. "Rolf of Northstrand did cast down his blade when his shield brother called." The chieftain nods, steps forward, and raises the sword high. With a single strike of his axe, he cleaves the blade in two. Metal shards glint as they fall to the grass. Villagers gasp, then nod in solemn approval. Rolf stares at the broken hilt in his hands, metal split through the runic engravings. He swallows hard, remembers the fear that seized him. The chieftain places a hand on his shoulder. Solemnly, "Your sword was your word. You shattered both. To reclaim your bond, you must forge anew under trial." Rolf bows. A smith retrieves the broken pieces and drags Rolf to the forge. There, he must temper molten steel at the smith's forge for 3 days, forging a new blade under the watchful eyes of the smith and his clan. Only when the blade rings true at its first strike will Rolf's honor be restored. In this ritual, the Thing makes tangible the connection between weapon and vow. The broken blade sentence shatters more than steel. It severs fear's hold, forging courage through fire and labor. When a healer's oath is broken, by misdiagnosis or neglect, the Thing may bind the offender with a silver talisman, a reminder of healing's responsibility. On a misty dawn, Eric the healer stands accused of failing to tend a child's fever. He arrives in a simple wool tunic, leather satchel at his belt. The law speaker recounts. Eric of Greengrove did neglect young Astrid's fever. Leaving her weak, the crowd shifts. Mothers clutch children closer. An elder priest brings forth a small silver talisman engraved with symbols of Yggdrasil. He kneels and places it around Eric's neck, the chain heavy against his chest. Eric's shoulders bow beneath its weight. The priest intones, "Wear this until you have healed 10 souls without fail. Let its weight remind you of each life entrusted to your skill." The clasp clicks shut. The talisman swings, catching dew-bright leaves. Over the next fortnight, Eric journeys across farms, tending wounds and fevers with unflagging care. Each successful cure lightens his steps, though the talisman remains, a subtle weight at his throat. At the 10th healing, he returns to Þingvellir. The priest lifts the talisman and proclaims, "Your oath is renewed, your skill proven." In this binding, the Thing affirms that healing is as sacred as law. The silver talisman serves not as punishment but as a guide, its presence forging renewed dedication to life's fragile trust. When rival families seek final settlement of deep-rooted feuds, the Thing may oversee a blood oath-sharing, kin binding their fates in shared blood. On a grey morning, 2 heads of clans, Sigurd and Arnulf, press spear shafts together, blades sheathed, before the assembly. Both wear cloaks of clan colours, green and bronze. The law speaker intones, deep voice, "Let your bond be sealed by blood and witness." Each man pricks his thumb with a ritual knife. Blood beads on spear junction, drips onto the carved knot runes below. The chieftain murmurs a blessing to Frigg, goddess of bonds. Sigurd and Arnulf clasp hands, spears held aloft. Their blood mingles in shallow grooves carved in a shared boulder. The crowd watches in hushed awe. The chieftain declares, loudly, "Bound by blood, your families shall no longer feud." In the seasons that follow, the clans intermarry and share harvest feasts. The blood oath binds beyond wood and iron. It forges unity in life's shared vessel. In matters unsettled by land-bound testimony, the Thing sometimes orders a sea trial, setting the accused adrift to gauge divine will. On a fog-rolled morning, Brynjar, accused of orchestrating a bad storm ritual, stands aboard a small clinker boat tethered at the river's mouth. His pelisse is damp, hair plastered to his brow. The law speaker's chant echoes. Brynjar of Stormhaven stands accused of summoning tempests. The chieftain nods. Brynjar straps himself to the boat's thwart with leather cord. A lone oarsman pushes the craft into the fog. The river takes him swiftly into drifting mist. Villagers line the bank, watching, until the boat vanishes in grey hush. 3 hours pass. At the first horn blast, Brynjar's lone horn reply echoes back. Proof, by ritual rule, of innocence. The boat drifts back. Brynjar steps ashore, face pale but unbowed. The chieftain pronounces, solemnly, "The fjords bear no ill will. You stand cleared." Relief ripples through the crowd. Brynjar collapses in gratitude, vowing never to toy with divine forces again. In this lonely trial, the Thing entrusts the sea as arbiter, casting fear into the mist to let truth emerge with tides. For suspected acts of treachery and winter raids, the Thing may use the ice staff probing, an ordeal invoking Ulla's judgment through a staff of frozen yew. On a bleak dawn, Karsten, accused of betraying his raiding party, stands near a snow-crusted knot of logs. His fur cloak is stiff with frost. The law speaker intones, "Karsten of Skelbay did reveal our plans." An elder priest holds aloft the carved staff of ice, pale blue and glinting. Karsten kneels, bare hand extended. The priest plunges the staff into his palm. Frost blooms instantly, searing cold and pain. Carsten endures 3 heartbeats before crying out. The priest pries the staff away and examines the frost's pattern, a clear rune for truth. He declares, "Ula's hand shows no deceit. You stand innocent." Carsten bows, teeth chattering. A healer warms his hand by the fire. In this chilling rite, the ice staff probing freezes fear and fosters faith, binding truth beneath winter's gaze. When false prophecy or dangerous speech threatens unity, the thing may impose the mask of silence, a metal visage clamped to the mouth. On a cold morning, Freydis, accused of inciting panic with wild omens, stands before the assembly. Her flaxen braids cascade over her shoulders, eyes wide with fear. The law speaker announces, "Freydis of Ireholt did speak omens that would fracture our peace." The chieftain brings forth the mask, a heavy iron plate with small vents. The smith clamps it over Freydis's mouth. The cold metal bites her skin. Bolts tighten at the temple, sealing lips behind steel. She stands mute as the crowd murmurs, each vent silencing a word once dangerous. For 3 days she will remain masked, relying on gestures to communicate. On the final dawn, the chieftain returns the key, unlocks the mask, and Freydis speaks her vow of restraint. "I will speak only truths that bind us, never divide." In this enforced quiet, the mask of silence transforms fearsome speech into thoughtful restraint, teaching the power of words in the hush of metal. When a verdict must be delivered to distant settlements, the thing may dispatch a raven's flight messenger, symbolic and swift. On a brisk dawn, an envoy named Solvi carries a sealed horn case and a raven trained for such tasks. He wears a cloak dyed raven black, hood pulled low. The chieftain charges him. "Bear this horn and rune-sealed verdict to the yardam across the fjord. Let the raven carry word on eager wings." Solvi nods, steps to a weathered post. He ties the horn case to the raven's legs. The bird flutters, wings beating in the tense stillness. As the raven lifts, a hush falls over the plain. Its black form arcs into the dawn sky, carried by wind. Villagers watch until it is no more than a shadow among clouds. Solvi bows, then mounts his palfrey to follow by land. Through this ritual, the raven's flight messenger binds community across distance, ensuring that Thing's justice resonates beyond stone and hearth. The Thing may use the hornblast of condemnation to summon all hearing of the gravest edicts. On an overcast day, the chieftain stands atop the highest stone dais, a carved ox horn to his lips. The accused, Sigvart, awaits judgment for violating guest right by attacking a visiting merchant. The law speaker recounts the crime. Solemnly, "Sigvart of Stonegate struck a guest in trust's embrace." A hush stretches taut. The chieftain raises the horn, breath echoing within its curved vault. He blasts a single, resonant note that rolls across fields and valleys alike. Villagers stop in their tasks, fishing, weaving, herding, to listen. The note hangs in the air, a living proclamation of Sigvart's shame. Sigvart's shoulders slump beneath his cloak. He meets the crowd's gaze, faces once jovial, now grave. The chieftain pronounces sentence, firmly. Exile or Wurgild. Sigvart chooses exile. The horn blast underscored the weight of violating sacred hospitality. As the final echo fades, Sigvart steps away, guest right broken, his fate sealed by note and decree. In that horn blast, the Thing channels voice into judgment, its reverberation a communal witness that crosses fields and hearts alike. At the close of a grueling case, the Thing may convene a final Wurgild reckoning, ensuring all fines and compensations are fully settled before departure. On a bright morning, 2 kinship groups gather by the standing stones, bones of tally sticks piled high. The law speaker intones each debt. 3 silver pennies for broken tools, a ewe for disputed land, 2 mead horns for insulted honor. Each tally is read aloud as scribes mark bone tablets. The air hums with focus. Even the wind seems to pause. Bjorn of Hrafan's Reach steps forward, pocketing the last silver penny into a linen pouch. He bows to his neighbor, Saun, who receives the payment with a nod. Next, Asta's family delivers the ewe, its soft bleats echoing beneath the grey sky. Knots are carved into tally sticks, each notch a closed chapter. When the final debt is counted, 3 nights' lodging for a travelling minstrel, both groups kneel, and the chieftain intones the closing. By these reckonings, our bonds are renewed. May no further claim arise. Horns are raised in agreement. In this meticulous ceremony, the Thing weaves peace from ledger and livestock. The final Wergild reckoning stands as testament that justice thrives not only in spectacle, but in the quiet settling of accounts before Viking halls.